Okay, so that was a little bit of a solo that I transcribed from Wolfgang Muthspiel playing over Solar. I just played with along with a backing track from YouTube here. I don't think I can play the actual recording for you because I don't think YouTube will like that. But it is from an album called Real Book Stories. So it's Wolfgang and Brian Blade and Mark Johnson, I think, and they play a bunch of standards, and as a jazz guitar student, it's a must. You need to listen to this album. So whatever streaming service you're using, if you haven't heard it, go and check it out and then come back to this video. So I transcribed this solo, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play it again along with the metronome and then stop and comment on things that I think are interesting. Then we're gonna take away those little ideas, licks or ideas, and then we're gonna do something with that. So I'm gonna learn something from this. I have learned something I've been working with this solo for a couple of weeks now, and hopefully you can learn something as well. So let's go. So maybe just the first two choruses here. The first bar he leaves open. Okay, so I'm adding a few chords here and there to give you an idea of what's going on. By the way, when they're playing, they're not really playing swing feel. There's more of like a broken, modern kind of feel to it, with even eighths. So it sounds totally different when they're playing as opposed to what I just did there with the backing track. But that's not the point of this lesson. I just want to get some of Wolfgang Muthspiel's vocabulary and incorporate it into my own playing. That's the objective of this exercise. So right off the bat, here we have a really cool lick. So it's kind of like a 2/5 lick, right? He's kind of ignoring the first two chord and treating the whole first two bars as some kind of C symmetrical diminished. That's in the symmetrical diminished scale, you find all these weird arpeggios like an A triad, sharp ninth, sharp 11. Like it's kind of tricky to come up with a good chord symbol or chord name for that. It's also kind of weird to try to... I don't claim to know what Wolfgang Muthspiel is thinking. You know, theory is just kind of a way to explain something after it happened. So that's how I'm trying to make sense of all this stuff that he's playing here. And to me, it sounds like he's playing some kind of symmetrical diminished scale here. By the way, this kind of stuff, to me, sounds kind of like something that John Scofield would play. A lot of people think that Wolfgang Muthspiel kind of sounds like Pat Metheny because he's got a clean tone and he kind of came on the scene at a time when there was a lot of fusion going on and a lot of distortion players on the scene. Now it's different. Now you have all these jazz guys, the young jazz players, they are playing with a clean tone. That wasn't the case. So that's why people automatically assume that he's kind of influenced by Pat Metheny, which he is probably. But I hear a lot of John Scofield in this. Also, later on, there's some more licks we're going to get to where you can hear that kind of Scofield influence. Well, they all studied with Mick Goodrick, so maybe that's where it's coming from. I'm not sure. So we're going to take that lick and put it on the shelf, and we're going to use it later. So keep that in mind, and we'll get back to it. Then he plays some other stuff, and then he's playing a bunch of triads with a very rhythmic, specific rhythmic motif. He displaces it too. It's not always on beat 1. 1, 2, 3. So that's another idea. Triads with that kind of rhythm. It's kind of bouncy, cool feel to it. We put that on the shelf as well, saving it for later. And moving on, let's look at the next two choruses perhaps. So page 3 and 4. So this is obviously on my Patreon page. So for you guys who want PDFs with tabs. So yeah, the third chorus starts like this. Or is my metronome? On beat 4, 2, 1, 2, 3. Then some chords. And then this. Okay, that's chorus 3 and 4. I really like this lick. So I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna steal that, change it a little bit so that it sounds like a G dominant going to C. It's a great lick. So I changed a few notes just to make it fit. Instead of on a C minor major 7, I'm thinking it's going to work over a G7 to go to C minor. Then what's really interesting is this stuff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So those are groups of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So groups of 3 over 4. Also known as Hemiola. I have a lesson I made ages ago. Not a lot of people watch that, so I'll link to it perhaps, on Hemiolas. It's not some esoteric thing. It's quite common to talk about Hemiolas. So it's basically a rhythm that is kind of a rhythm that kind of goes on top of the meter of the song. And it should add up. So a 3 group over 4/4 adds up after 3 bars. He does a lot of that. The next phrase is also Hemiola. He plays. Okay, so here's something that I want to talk about. When I play that rhythm, it sounds like I'm playing 3/4, right? Dum dim dum 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 1 2 3. But he's playing it in 4/4. Plus, he's not giving you beat 1. He's kind of disguising beat 1. You think that's beat 1, but it's not. It's 1 2 3 4 1 2 3. So with the metronome, 3 4 1 2. Gives you that ambiguous feel of where exactly is the beat, which gives everything this kind of loose exciting, hopefully, feeling when you're listening to it, because you're not sure where the beat is. I think this has happened to all of us when we're listening. It could be a silly pop song. Sometimes you hear a rhythm, but the way the rhythm kind of falls in the beat, the kind of the gravity of the rhythm, throws you off. So you hear it wrong. It's not where the beat is. It's we all have those songs where we hear it's like, huh. Led Zeppelin is a good example. A lot of their tunes is like confusing or misleading where the beat is, right? So that's something that we need to work on, because if we can't hear rhythms in different ways, we're gonna get thrown when the band starts to mess around with the rhythm, which is going to happen if you're playing with seasoned players. And it's part of what we're doing as jazz musicians. We don't want to be locked into like bars, boxes of bars. We want to be able to kind of do whatever we want and flow on top of the beat or displace rhythms and stuff like that. So that kind of thing will eventually, if you play a lot of jazz, if you play all the time with great musicians, you're gonna develop that, probably that kind of ability to do that anyway, just from experience. But it's also something I think we should work on, and something drummers work on that, and I think we should too. So again, I'm gonna take that idea, and I mean, it could be any notes. It doesn't have to be those notes. But I'm gonna take that and add that to the things I'm gonna work on later. So I'm saving that. Then we have another. Oh, by the way, the next chorus he starts with the same rhythm. I'm not sure that he's doing the alternate fingering, but makes sense to me to do that. I mean, it's a very simple idea. It's just one note, but again, the rhythm is displaced, so it's simple and advanced at the same time. Then we have this lick. I'm not sure if it's a D flat or a D there. It's kind of hard to hear. So that's also, to me, sounds like it's very Schofield. It's like an A triad over C7, so symmetrical diminished, but he goes up to the F sharp. And then some kind of pentatonic outside material. Very symmetrical diminished to me. Hip stuff. Very hip stuff. And another thing we need to consider is that this kind of stuff that he's playing fits my way of playing very well. I have a similar kind of approach to playing the guitar technically. So it's kind of easy for me to lift this stuff because it fits my playing. I can kind of figure out what he's doing. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I'm probably pretty close when it comes to fingerings and stuff. As opposed to if I were to lift Alan Holsworth or something, I have no idea of how he's using, like how he plays that stuff. So it would be much more difficult for me to figure that out. That's also a good idea, obviously, to work on something that you're not familiar with, but that can be frustrating. So that's something to consider when you're picking stuff that you're going to lift. Okay, I think that's enough of, there's a lot more here, but then you can learn the solo and take the stuff that you like. I'm picking the stuff that I like. All right, so here's what I want to do next. I'm gonna take all this stuff that we learned, that we took away from this solo, and I'm gonna use it on a different tune. Softly as in the Morning Sunrise, which is also in C minor kind of tune. So we have the A section, which is kind of just like a C modal situation, in my opinion. Right? So there I can apply all those ideas. And then for the B section, there's a bunch of dominant chords. I'm gonna apply the licks. So for example, I take the triad idea. For the A section, I'm just gonna elaborate or experiment and, try that idea. And then for the dominant chord, the B flat going to E flat, I'm gonna play this. There it is. And then when it goes to F minor, I'm just same thing. But then, or, so I'm just resolving it to minor, the minor third instead of the major third. On the G7, I could also play that later. So that's gonna sound like this. Triads. Okay, so that's something that works. Again, I'm adding stuff to my vocabulary. Then there was this idea of playing 3 beat long chords, like dotted half note chords, Hemiola. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna try the next lick. Actually, I'm gonna try. That's a very long lick. It kind of doesn't resolve where you expect it to resolve. It kind of goes over the next chord as well. So it's gonna work a little bit different. I'm gonna try it over the C. And then over the G, I'm gonna do this. Okay, so dotted quarter notes on the A section. Sorry, dotted half notes. Is what it is, right? Yeah, dotted half notes. And then those licks over the B section. And we should see what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Don't just start on beat 1. That wasn't good. Try this whole thing again. Okay, then we have this idea. Right, and the Hemiola would sound like this. 2, Continue on that baby. 1, 2, 1, 2. There's one thing I forgot to mention. It's in chorus number. Hang on here. Bear with me. Oh yeah, there's one thing I forgot to mention. In chorus number 6, he plays this. both those patterns are very common in jazz. He also seemed to favor harmonic minor over C. When I play solo, I never think of that first chord as harmonic minor, but he seems to be treating it like that quite a lot. So that's another thing that you can get away from lifting in other players, that they bring you new ideas that you haven't thought of. It's like, wait, yeah, you can play C harmonic minor over solo. Works great. And this pattern, it's a great pattern because it gives you kind of that forward motion. You hear it and it's like it's going somewhere. And even better is, that's also a hemiola, right? It's got a 3 beat to it. So I can do that as well. Harmonic minor. Okay, so am I forgetting something? There's so much more here that you could talk about. I'm just kind of touching on a few things, but those are the kind of things that I liked the most about this solo. So the idea here is not that you learn this entire solo, that I lifted it for you to learn, even though you should look at it and practice it. The idea here is to inspire you to transcribe your own solos, but don't just do that. Find the things that you like. First, you need to find the solos you want to lift and the players that you want to sound like and that you like, right? And then you want to take their ideas and incorporate them into your own playing. And that's what I'm doing here. That's why I'm trying to play them over a different tune, forces me to think about how do you actually apply these licks? Like, where do they work, on what chords and what have you? So that's the idea of this lesson. And check out, if you haven't checked out Wolfgang Muthspiel, that's a must. He's one of the great players, basically. It's maybe not as famous as some of the other bigger names, but he should be. Maybe it's because he's not based in New York anymore. I don't know. He's an Austrian guitar player. So check out his records, check out his playing with other artists, and I think if you haven't done so already, you'll be pleasantly surprised that this is a lot of music to check out. So again, this stuff is on my Patreon page. Thanks so much to all my Patreons. I got a few new ones this month, and I'm planning on making like a online masterclass or online lesson for you guys, maybe every now and then. I'm not sure how that would work technically. So if you guys are more technically savvy than I am and know if there is some kind of software I need to get or something for doing that, or if you can do it on Google Hangout or something, let me know. And yeah, I shall see you next time.